So I'm going to attempt to tell my testimony. Started when I was around 11 or 12. I had a kid the same age as me move in real close by to my house within walking distance, and we started hanging out, and his parents took him to church, and he would talk about it with me, how he went to church, and it got me interested. I found myself always being drawn to God. I remember asking my mom about if there was God, when I was real young, when I don't even know how I even knew about God. But anyways, so church and God was getting put on my mind, and then around that time when I was 11 or 12, there was an earthquake in Oregon where I live. It was the only earthquake that's ever happened since I've lived in Oregon my whole life. The only one that happened in the area I live in. And when this earthquake happened, it really shook me up, for the most solid and trusting thing that I knew, the earth, the thing I walk on, shook beneath my feet. The whole house shook, and it scared me, and then when I went to bed that night, there was an aftershock, and that aftershock felt 5 times as strong. I mean, the whole house was shaking, what it looked like to me like the house is going to fall in on me. And now it wasn't only the house and the earth shaking, I was shaking with fear. I was petrified of this earthquake, it was like the Lord put extra fear into me, I have no doubt that he was, trying to draw me to him. So with sometime later that week, my dad comes home from work, and I overhear him and my mom talking about this lady that he worked with in his office, that was talking about the last days, that we were in the last days, how she was a Christian. I don't even know how I knew about the last days in the Bible, but somehow it rang true with me, and it that's between the earthquake and that, it just hit me. I was like, man, I want to find God. So within a couple days, I went to my parents and I said, please take us to church. I want to go to church, please. I want to go to, I really just pleaded with them, and it worked. Somehow I was able to get through to them. Maybe their hearts were being drawn too, I don't know, but usually my whole family wouldn't pack up and do something like that just because I wanted to. But I got through to them. So the next available Sunday coming up, we went to this little old Baptist or Pentecostal, just this little old church that had maybe 10 people, and they were all 50 and above, 60, really old people, and they were really excited to see youth in the church. But it was just, they were really sweet, but it was just kind of dead in there. We weren't feeling it. So the next Sunday we went to this church called Trail Christian Fellowship. I think it's in Shady Cove. It's almost to Shady Cove, the town, so it's either considered Eagle Point or Shady Cove. I don't know which one for sure, but that's ended up being our home. We stayed at this church for a long time. Pastor Rick Boya was the pastor, and we liked him when we were going there. I went there all the way through high school, and then went there a couple years out of high school, not as regular but pretty often, and then eventually stopped going to church for quite some years. But anyways, so we start going to Trail Christian, and I was the first one to give my life. I really believed, and the whole deal. I believed, and got baptized not immediately, but I believed. And then my best friend and his mom started taking them to a little church, and so they started going to church because I started going. So I guess he talked his mom into going to church, and my mom went with his mom to their church, and she got saved there. So she was the second one to get saved, and then my brother, he got saved next, and then my dad was the last one. It was hard for him because he was an alcoholic and really rough around the edges kind of guy when I was a kid. We were a pretty worldly, rough around the edge type of family until that point. So then now we're all saved. I go into start 7th grade, and man, did I get put through it for becoming a Christian. All my life before, I was always the biggest and the strongest, and always popular, and lots of friends, and I was always nice. I never started fights, but I finished a lot of fights when I was a kid. I remember one time I even got in a fight when I was in 4th grade. I got in a fight with an 8th grader on my bus. He picked on me, so I waited until he was walking by to get off the bus to go to schools. He'd have to walk across the street to the junior high, and I'd go to the school on the side the bus is on. So I hopped up right behind him and followed him down off the bus, and right as he's stepping off the bus, I pushed him in the back, and then he had a couple of thick like math and science books, and he just spun around and smacked me with both hands, swung it like a baseball, and hit me baseball bat and hit me in the face and knocked me back. I just jumped up and hit him once, and laid him down on his back on the ground, and he got up and took off running to the high school. And after that, I was like, the man on the bus. All the high schoolers and junior high kids wanted me to sit back with him, but I only did it because he picked on me. I never was a bully. I never liked bullying. All of my fights was standing up to bullies when I was a kid. I had a couple of best buds that would get kind of get into trouble, and then I would step in and fight them. But anyways, so now I'm going into 7th grade, and for some reason over 6th grade summer, as I become a Christian, it's like I didn't grow any in height, and I put on chub and got chubby over the summer all of a sudden. So I show up in the 7th grade, and now instead of the biggest, strongest, I'm like a short, chubby kid, and first day of school, walking down the halls, the first thing that happens is a group of 8th graders, and one of them just runs across the hallway and knees me as hard as he can on my leg. And I went to punch him, I tightened up, and I just started punching, but right as I was going to punch him, I look over and seen all his friends were just like itching to, like to run over if I did anything. And then I got found out real quick, like if you stand up to the popular kids, they would jump you. I had friends that did end up standing up and beating up one of the popular kids. They sent a girl in with a note, pretending that was a note from one of this kid's teacher, to pull him out of class. When they went out of class, they jumped him, and I've seen it a couple times. So I'm in 7th grade now, shorter, chubby. A lot of friends I had, in 6th grade now act like they don't even want to know me. I'm walking around with Christian shirts, and and I'm the short, chubby kid. My voice hasn't changed, and so I just really got put through the test of, how am I going to be now that I gave my life, But I was committed, I completely changed. I used to have a really bad temper, always nice, but I could just snap, angry. It's like when I gave my life and then get baptized, it was just gone. I had no temper anymore. It's like I couldn't even pull it out. It's like just washed out of me. But so I go through in 7th and grade, just picked on and hardly any friends. At 8th grade, I got a little more friends because a lot of kids like to hacky sack, and I was the best in the school at hacky sack. Like we did a competition to see who could hit like a team to see who could hit the hacky sack the most. So I just hit it like 170 times, and then I passed it to the teammates, and each of them hit it a couple times. And so long as everyone hit it, whoever got the most hits won. So won the hacky sack. So I got a little more friends, but I was still dedicated to being a good Christian boy. But I started to listen to worldly music. I started out with listening to like Soundgarden. You gotta keep them separated. You ever heard that song? And then, not Soundgarden, Offspring. You gotta keep them separated. And then I started dabbling and listening to Nirvana, and I would justify it like, oh, Nirvana's good. See, he sings a song where he's like, where the bad folks go when they die, they don't go to heaven where the angels fly, they go to a lake of fire and fry. See him again till the 4th of July. So I'm like, start dabbling with worldly music, got a little more friends and stuff, and then I go into 9th grade and I'm back to square one. All my friends moved away except my best friend that I've had since 3rd grade. I mean, we did everything together, me and my best friend, like the closest best friends you could ever have, like true blue. Like we literally did everything together. And so we're in 9th grade, and he's my only friend left in the area. Now I'm at the school with giants. I'm just a little freshman. We had some gnarly seniors at my school that year, some big juniors, and right back to being bullied and stuff. And partway through freshman year, my best friend decided he wanted to try smoking pot. And I was like against that. Like, no way was I ever gonna drink or smoke pot or do any of that. But I came to this crossroads where it was like I knew that if I didn't go and smoke pot with him and do that with him, where we both did it together our first time, that he was gonna go off in a different direction in life than I was. I was gonna stay being the dedicated Christian boy, and he was gonna go off and do that stuff. So out of my own fear of being alone at the time, I went along with him and smoked pot with him. The first time, didn't feel it. Second time, me and my best friend are with this other friend of ours that always went to the same school as us. His name was Chris, and he had some weed, and we were smoking. I'm taking like big old hits, like thinking, this is so stupid. You don't even, this is the second time. I didn't feel nothing the first time. I'm thinking people are just full of it, So I'm taking big old hits, and then we get done smoking. I'm like, man, this stuff is like not even fake or something. And we start walking back to school, and then it hits me, and oh my God. In my life, I went off and done several drugs in my life. I've done mushrooms a couple times. I've done acid a few times. And I don't know why, but there's a couple times when I smoked pot, and this being one of them, where I swear it was more strong than acid or mushrooms ever were for me. And I'd done some, well, actually I take that back. One time I had a bad trip on mushrooms because I ate way too much, but all the other times I just took normal, good amounts. For some reason, it was so crazy to me. But anyways, we're walking back to school, and I'm just starting to trip out, like, oh my God, they want to go back to school. Like they insisted on going to school. I'm like, I can't believe this. They were going to different classes. I was gonna have to go off to a class by myself. So stoned. And we had to cross this little covered bridge. It's actually like a really old covered bridge that was moved from another place to the town Eagle Point and fixed up and look, like this antique looking wood bridge. But there was always a bridge monitor on there to make sure kids weren't doing bad stuff on the bridge. So right before we're gonna cross this bridge, my friend Chris leans in real close and he's like, okay, whatever you guys do when we cross this bridge, don't laugh. And me and my friend Mike were like, okay, you know. I'm thinking like, why is he saying don't laugh? It almost made me laugh a little bit just thinking like that he just said that, but I'm still tripping out. And so we start walking the bridge, and I get real serious, like I don't want this bridge monitor to know that I'm high, and you know, I'm trying to act normal, and then all of a sudden my friend Chris, the one that says don't laugh, he kind of giggles. He's like, you know, and then it kind of makes me and my other friend giggle, and then all of a sudden we just start laughing so hard about the time we get to her. We're literally like none of us said anything, and we get all the way to where she's at, and then we just start dying laughing, like laughing so hard. I sounded like a donkey, or you know, just like full mentally handicapped, having a seizure laugh, going across. We're laughing so hard. We get to the other side of the bridge, and then I see a cop driving by one of the streets near us, and that kind of like got the laugh and the stop, and we go down the street, and I go right back into panic, and like, oh my God, and I start praying. I'm like, Lord God, if you can make me sober right now, I will walk away from this stuff. I don't care if I have to be alone or whatever. I will never do this again. That's how scared I was, and God didn't answer that prayer. I went to school, and man, that was just bizarre how crazy it was. And then I had another similar experience the next time, and then then over time you do it here and there, and next thing you know, it becomes like second nature. Now you're liking it, and you're seeking it out. Now I'm a full-on stoner. So I go from not wanting, never would do it, to being a full-on stoner, and then it goes from it's on weed, it's natural, bro, it's just a plant, man, God made it, and then it goes to from that to, oh, mushrooms is natural, bro, it grows, God wouldn't have made it, the stupid stuff, the same stupid stuff that always gets pushed. And then it's like, I've already done hallucinogenics, acid's the same, you do acid, and then, so on and so on. And so, then the music went from like Nirvana and stuff to now I'm listening to rap. And that came about shortly after. Next thing that majorly corrupt me is the first pornographic movie that we get our hands on, and that planted a seed of perversion, for where all the guys, in high school, sexualizing girls, and so then you start listening to rap, because it's like rap is, back then, was about, not taking no crap and sleeping with girls. It was like appealed to me. So now I'm like, went from this innocent Christian boy to, a drug addict that listens to just the worst music you could think of, as far as like if you're trying to walk with God, rap wouldn't be the music, talking about killing people, and it just progressed more and more. I was always different, though, I always had this innocence and kindness about me that I didn't understand why no one else did around me. I was always like the moral compass in the group, like, can't do that, that's messed up, you don't like get pissed off at my friends and pick on. So I never was into bullying, and I never could stand if anyone else did either, and because I was the nice, moral guy, my friends, when we're all together, like four of us, it always ended up being like I'd be the one that was the easiest to joke on, and I would always get kind of hurt, like like, what? I'm always building you guys up and being like a great friend to all you, and when we're one-on-one, you never ever say anything but good things to me, and then but when we're in a group, you want to like join up and crack on me and I could beat up any one of you easily, and you know it. I'm thinking, but they know I wouldn't, and now I'm a good friend, and I was an easy target to joke on. And so over time, I just got to where I got sick of being the one that would get joked on, and I got tired of not getting girls because I was always too stoned to talk to new people. Really if I got comfortable around them, I could talk, but then at that point, you'd be in the friend zone. So I get out of, go through high school, partying and doing everything, and right out of high school, I work at a boat factory for a few years, and then I quit that job, and then I was going to start working at a mill, so I had to pass a drug test, so I'd been smoking pot consistently every day, like tons of it for years, so I finally quit smoking pot for like a year, and I grew up a lot in that year, and in that year I became, the guy that was going to have the quickest tongue out of the group to always have the better joke to crack on them, and show that just another step into worldliness, like another level of, becoming more and more worldly. So, but then I end up getting married and having, or right before I get married, I'm becoming this like really wild dude where like, I'm ready to fight anyone. I used to never would want to fight all through high school. I was like the innocent in that area. I always never wanted to hurt anyone. I always knew, because I would like box with people, and my friend, lots of friends who got in fights and stuff. I never did, but I would always box and wail on them and stuff. So I always like never wanted to hurt anyone, and so I just never got any fights. Because I never felt like I needed to prove myself, because I already proved it with my friends and stuff, and I didn't like that kind of drama. Like, I like watching UFC because it's like a sport, but I don't like the drama of actually hurting people or seeing people get hurt. But I start to get that way, after working at the boat factory. I start to get, a little uppity. I get super strong working at the mill, and I already got my heart broke once, and now girls for now, and I just plan on using them as friends with benefits, and it's like I was getting a little too wild. So the next thing you know, I get a boulder toppled over me. We were pushing big boulders down this hill, it's me and some friends, and one of them smashed me, knocked my hips crooked, and broke a few these bones that come off your spine at the bottom. Messed me up. Couldn't even walk. I was a hunchback in Notre Dame or something for almost a year. I was stuck in a recliner chair for like almost a year, and because of that, I got on pain medication, and then I went on this pain pill abuse for years. And it got to, I got married and had a couple kids, and then I'm trying to keep my habit going to stay well enough to function, but I would abuse it, and take more than what I would have, and get to where I'd be sick more than I wasn't, because when you're on opiates, if you don't have it, if you've been on it a long time, you don't have it, I can't even describe how bad it is. It's you feel like you're dying. So I'm spending some years, raising kids, I have a wife, and just got to where I'm sick more than I'm well, and Then we end up moving, me and my wife and my kids moved to a different city, and I find out about a methadone clinic. I never even heard of such a thing. I'm like, there's a place that'll give you pain medication because you're addicted. So that began the process of me starting to get stability. And then once I started to get a little stability, I started really saying, you know what, I'm going to start focusing more on God now, because I'm tired of hiding from Him, because I'm like afraid of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start seeking Him and live how I live, and see how that goes. But I will tell you this, even though while I was living worldly all that time, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about God. I prayed to Him whenever I was in trouble, and I don't think there was ever a person that I had any kind of meaningful conversation with that I didn't tell him that I believed in God. But when I was living real worldly, I would always tell him, but I'm not the example to look at to how you should live. I don't live like I should, even though I do believe that God is real. So I'm on the clinic for a while, and things are starting to get stable, and the next thing you know, my wife, we're together for like 7 years, and she bails on me and the kids, just decides to walk out, and so I get crushed over that, absolutely crushed, and got just completely depressed for a couple years, put on all kinds of weight because I just couldn't even move. I was living at my parents' with my kids, raising my kids at my parents' house, and just crippled with depression. I couldn't believe my kids had to be raised in a broken home. I didn't believe in divorce because I always, believed in God. I just always tried to do what was right, other than, doing drugs and cursing. Like the big moral things, I always tried to my best to stay true to. And I just believe marriage was something like that's like a pact you make with God, because me and my wife both believe, and when we got married, we even dedicated our marriage to God. But I don't know, I was just crushed, put on a lot of weight, and then I just started looking for God. I started getting really depressed. Almost died a few times from an infection in my leg that went toxic in my bloodstream, and I started fearing about my mom dying. Started questioning the first time in my life, what if God's not real? And I almost died 3 years in a row in the hospital, and just each time I would get a little closer to God, back to God, searching for truth, just getting woken up to the truth of this world. And over time, I found it. I just found myself really firmly believing there's no doubt that God's real. And I start looking around the world and realizing everything that Jesus said to look for, you'll know He's at the very door. It's all happening in mass amounts. It's clear. So one day I just get done watching these 2 videos in this day. One video, a guy was talking about Cheshvan 17 on the Hebrew or the Jewish calendar was coming up. How it was, the day on the calendar that's the day of the flood. The flood began, and Noah got on the ark and shut the door on Cheshvan 17. And then a little bit later, I watched a video, and this guy's saying, "Yeah, God was telling me that it's almost time. It's almost time to shut the door." And it just all these things are hitting me this day, and I started feeling really convicted about some past sins I had done in my life, and then I started thinking how some people talked about how you can't be on pain medication if you're with God and all this, and I started worrying about that for some reason. I was getting really convicted. So this one day with all these things happen, I just cry to God. I cried to him, just bawling like, I don't know if you can forgive me. I've done some bad things, and I'm on meth. I don't even know if I can be yours. And I said, it looks like we really are in the last days. It's like, are we really in the last days? And it's like, if we're in the last days, like, Lord, please don't leave me behind. And I was just bawling my eyes out in prayer. And then later that day, or that night, when I went to bed, lo and behold, God came to me in a way that changed me forever. Yeah. I went into this dream where I was at the house I grew up in, and I was outside, and I was staring up at the night sky, and this dream is so real, it makes a normal vivid dream look like an old VHS, a warped VHS. I mean, it's so real, it's like, I can't even describe how real dreams are from God when He really wants to impress upon you something. So I'm sitting there looking up at the night sky, and the stars are just absolutely phenomenal. I can't even believe what I'm looking at. I'm literally starstruck. I'm just like, wow, oh my God. And then I lean up against the house and sit down on the ground, and I just stare, and it just, I couldn't even stop looking at the sky when I did that. When I sat down, I just like leaned up against the wall and slid down, just staring up at the sky like, wow. And then I go over, looking over, and I see the moon, and it's a full moon, and it's just bright white. I'm just like, I couldn't believe how big this moon looked. I'm just like, oh my God, wow. And then all of a sudden I hear a voice say, something's wrong, look closer. And I'm like, I get a little butterflies in my chest, and I'm like, something's wrong. And I look down and over a little bit, and there's a second full moon, but a little darker tint. And when I see it, I get overcome with fear for some reason. I stand up, and I rush into the house. And when I go in the house, all the lights are off, and it's dark. And right when I go in there, I start hearing what was either sounded like helicopters or like fallen angels, like wings flapping. I still don't know which one, but they're shining these beams of light at the house looking for me, and I could actually feel the intensity of them wanting to find me, whatever these things were. And so I walk into this big like living room. Everything's exactly like it was when I was in there. It was so real when I lived at this. Everything's the same, and there's this sectional couch that goes like that and then turns 90 degrees and goes that way, and there's this blanket on there that my grandma had made me, knitted out of yarn. So my idea is to lay on the couch and cover myself in this blanket from head to toe and lay flat and hope that I blend in with the couch as these lights are beaming. It's like the lights are shining around everywhere, frantically looking for me. So I'm hiding in there, and the stream's so real that these yarn blankets, there's holes in there, and I actually have it over my head, and I can actually see out of the holes, and I'm seeing the lights beam around through the windows and come across the couch. And then all of a sudden, right when they're getting close to like looking at the couch, all of a sudden I feel these things, they get terrified, and they just take off like in a flash, like they got out of there. And on the furthest seat on the other part of the couch, it goes this way, and then it takes a right turn. So my head's over on this furthest side of the couch, and then over on the other furthest seat from it, I hear what sounds like kind of like an old radio or something, but it's making this like this crazy sound, and it's so loud. It's like a normal dream, you hear a sound like it's like you think the sound. Well, it was like real sound. Like it sounded like it was happening outside, not really in the dream, like it was happening outside in the real world. And it was almost waking me up, but it was like something like God was just keeping me pressed into my sleep so I wouldn't wake up even through this extremely loud sound. And I start hearing it, and it starts to clear up that loud sound, and I start to hear like another language. I don't even know what language it was. I heard another language speaking, and then I felt that it was trying to tell me something. So I'm like, saw the blankets over my head, and I'm like, I like turned my head a little bit to like get my ear position better, and I was like, what is it trying to say? And it's like, whoa, you know, hear another language, and all of a sudden I hear Lucas 27:17, look it up, and then I just wake up, sit all the way up, and I'm just like, oh my God, like it was the most real thing I've ever experienced. In some ways, it's almost like realer than real life. And I'm like, oh my God, Lucas 27:17, I gotta look that up. And then I just instantly like fell down back to sleep, like God just like knocks me out. I just boom, fall back asleep, and instantly go into a second dream, just as real. Now I'm up on this mountain that I used to go up on. It's a chunk of BLM that you can only have access to if you know someone that lives in front of it, and which I did. But I'm up there with my two best buds, my best bud that I've had from, you know, when I was in third grade, and then another best friend, my second best friend that we ended up becoming best buds, and when I was a freshman in high school, and we're best friends all through high school, the three of us. Well, he was like the second best friend. It was like me and Mike were best friends, and then he was like the third best, you know, second best friend, so we're all three best friends though. But anyways, we're up on this mountain in the beautiful sunny day, and just looking around. It's amazing, having a wonderful time. And then like somewhere between like 20 to 50 yards up ahead of me, all of a sudden like a 8 to 10 foot tall little oak tree, or looked like an oak tree, starts walking past up in front of me, like going this way, and it's just trekking along, and I'm just like, oh my God, guys, that tree is alive. It's what, dude, it's walking. And the way it was walking is its roots were above the ground, and its roots were moving like octopus tentacles. It just so vivid, so real, just like real life. This thing's trekking along, going, moving, and like we all get the idea to run after it. So we all start running after it, and my two best friends were up ahead of me, and they both grab this oak tree at the same time. And right when they grab it, the oak tree flashes, and it turns into three all of a sudden, and then all three take off in different directions. And right at that, you know, and I just get shocked when I see that. I'm just like, and right when I get shocked, I hear Lucas 27:17, look it up. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta look that up. And then boom, I go into a third dream. And now it's me and those same two friends. It's in the day, and we're walking up this concrete or pavement ramp with a rail on it, walking up to go into this like coffee shop / bookstore. And we walk in through the door, and my two best friends, they go off one way, and I'm looking around, looking at the counter, looking at books, and I see this doorway, this open door with no door on it, and I decided to walk through and see what's in that part of the building. And right when I go in there, instant gloom, like just despair feeling in this. It's like this commercial looking kitchen, you know, with like big metal sinks and like stoves and stuff in there. I'm going in there, and I just instantly sink, like, oh, like despair. And I look over, and between the sink and a stove, there's this man that's naked, but it's like just the only thing covered was like his privates, and he's in between the stove and the sink, and he's chained by his wrists and his ankles, and he's just up against, with his back against the wall, and his head's just down like this, and he's just like, you can feel he's like so traumatized, so brutalized, that like he's alive, but he's like checked out. He's just completely used up. And I hear the voice say, yeah, and he does whatever he takes whatever pleasure he wants out of these. And I knew that he was talking about Satan, that he just what he does to these people. And all of a sudden, at first I'm just like, oh, it's terrible. And then all of a sudden I get like overcome, like I get possessed by sin itself. And it comes over me, and I get this urge where I'm like, oh, well, if there's people to do whatever you want with, I'm going to go look for some girls. So now I'm on a mission, and I walk out the same door I came in and take a right and go down this hallway. And I'm looking in rooms. I walk past a couple rooms and don't see anything. I get to like a third room, and I look in and in the room, and there's 3 girls in there. And the best way I can describe the way they looked and where they were dressed is they looked like French maids crossed with clowns, like evil clowns. So they had like this clown looking colored hair, but they had like French maid outfits on. And I'm like looking at their feet, and I look up, and all 3 of them are standing facing towards the door, and they all 3 have their heads down like this. And I right as I'm looking up and seeing get a good look where their heads are, their heads come up like they sense me, and their heads come up and they look at me, and their eyes are black, and then they smile, and when they smile they have rows of these sharp teeth. And right then it shocks me out of like the sin that was like took me over, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't me, what am I doing? And right then I hear the same voice say, Lucas 27:17, look it up. And then I wake up right then, and I reach over, and the first thing I do is I grab my phone, and I just bring it right up to my face to look what time it is. And it was 5:15 in the morning. And I get up, and I'm like shook. I cannot believe that my whole night went by, and it was 3 dreams, the realest things I've ever experienced. Before that, I didn't even dream. Like, I would almost never dream at all, and if I did it, it's just like a blobby mess where, I would try to just explain a dream, and I couldn't make it. It would be like, yeah, and I walked and I went through this thing, and like you couldn't explain it if you tried. And usually I didn't even have dreams, so this was something so far out of the realm of anything I experienced in my life. I'm just like, I am like buzzing when I wake up. So I'm like, I gotta look that up, so I grab my Bible to look up, and then I like hear in the spirit, like, no, not in the Bible, grab the phone. And I'm like, grab the phone. So I grab the phone, and I type in Lucas 27:17. And the only thing that pops up was Luke 17:27. Nothing else popped up. So I'm like, well, maybe that's what it means. So I I tap on it, look at it, and it says they did eat, they drank, and they gave in marriage all the way up until the day the flood came, or all the way until Noah boarded the ark and shut the door, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And I'm just like, no way, that's literally, like was the final piece that made me break down and cry, because I seen these 2 videos talking about Noah's Ark and how Chess Van 17 was coming up, and the other, and the door shutting, and I'm just like, and I'm asking, is it really the end? And what are the chances of the thing popping up that it's that? So I'm like, there's no way that's a coincidence. That's impossible to have that happen. So but then I stopped, and I like, but why did it say Lucas 27:17 if it was Luke 17:27? So I said, why don't I look up 27:17 in the Bible? So I type it in, and what pops up was the lexicon. and I click on it, and the meaning, it says at the top, to burn, to smite, destruction, destroy, burning, all these words of that it describe, the end times, like how things would be burned instead of flooded like the last time. And I'm just like, no way, like that's two clear answers that it's the end, like that it's the end. And I'm like, and then I hear it in my spirit, and I look up why I said Luke, what Lucas means. Look up the name Lucas, and so I type in meaning of Lucas in the Bible, I think is how I typed it. And what popped up right at the top, the first thing it said luminous white, she knows, right underneath it. I don't know if the she knows was like something to do with the website or whatever. All I know is it said luminous white, she knows. And then in my spirit, I heard, like, it gave me the answer, like, you're made white as snow, luminous white. You're forgiven and made luminous white as snow. And it said she knows, meaning like you are part of the bride. Like, now she knows that she's the bride, like, because we're called the bride of Christ. And I'm just like, no way, and then I hear in my spirit, and the Holy Ghost says in me, now look at the Lord says through the Holy Ghost in me, look up the time I woke you in the Strongs. Because I just had learned about the Strong Concordance like that same week. I didn't even know that the Strong's Concordance existed. So I'm like, dude, if this is something else, that fits it, this is gonna be amazing. So I type in 515 in the Strong's Concordance, and it pops up right at the top. The first thing is the Greek Strong's Concordance. I tap on it, and it says, to treat as worthy. I account and treat as worthy is the meaning on there. And I was just like about to cry at that point. I'm like, oh my God, like there's no way. I got two definite, clear answers alluding to that it's the end, that we are in the last days. And then I got two crystal clear answers to I forgive you, and I count you or treat you as the bride, and I was just like changed, and I felt forgiven. I had a heavy weight about me the day before, and for a while, still, even though I had been following and seeking God, I'd still felt guilty and was unsure. I felt weight lifted, and for the last 3.5 years, there has not been a day that goes by that the first thing I think of when I wake up, and then all through the day, and the last thing I think of before I go to sleep is the Lord. I think of Him continually, and He's talked to me. Not long after that, I remember one time I done something I thought was a sin, felt guilty about, and I'm crying to Him, and when I went to sleep after praying, and then right when I was waking up, I heard His voice while I was awake say, I forgive you. And I was like, oh my God, I heard my Lord's voice. And then another time, He woke me up, and I heard His actual voice. He said, come all ye who were invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And it's just the most amazing things that I've experienced with God in the last few years. Like, I don't know, it's hard for people to believe when I tell them the stuff that He's done in my life. He's literally given me direct answers when sometimes I'll, be praying about something, like struggling with my walk, and I'll go to sleep, and He'll wake me up in the middle of the night, and the Holy Ghost will tell me to grab my phone and look at the time He wakes me, and it'll be like the most perfect answer, giving me exactly what I need in the Strongs, where He's giving me unbelievable dreams, so real, He's comforted me. He's like, It's like so unbelievable to have the Lord, actually talk to you. It's like, why me? I'm nothing. I don't have a great outlook on myself very often. Like I don't sit there and think like, oh, well, I'm special. Like, yeah, God talks to me, but I guess there's a verse where Jesus says, you you brought like innocent babes to me instead of the wise. It talks about that. I guess it's just because I'm soft hearted. But one time I was upset about stuff, and I'll actually tell that dream sometime. He gave me a dream where he told me he woke me to give me hope, because I felt hopeless, and I can't tell you how real Jesus is. If people only knew how real he is, in that he does talk to people. He does have relationships with people like in the Bible, because I've experienced it for 3.5 years now. And he's told me he's coming soon. He's coming so soon. A lot of people don't even realize it. So, and over these last 3 years, he's just been knocking down strongholds in my life, helping me, and I've struggled a lot with, like I want to do so good, because, he's like everything to me. So at times I just kind of beat myself up, like, because I'm disabled and at home where I can't do a whole lot. So a lot of times I feel like all I have is my words, like Paul says, show them with your actions, not your words, and I'm just like, Lord, it's like all I have a lot of times is my words. But it matters to what you do even at your home, like how you are with your family. Anyway, you can, be kind and sharing and selfless and helpful with your family and minister to your family. And, anything you can do to just seek righteousness, But there's a lot of stuff that happened in between that I didn't go into. But I could make this video 3 hours long, so I'll just save it and say some of the stories. Because when I first came in life, I had a crazy experience when I was like 13. Was being traumatized by a demon or demons that was haunting me up in my room. And that'll be a really good story when I tell that one. But anyways, the Lord Jesus is coming soon, and everyone needs to understand that when you're his, we get taken and pulled out of the way, but then comes wrath, then comes destruction. Jesus says it himself, as it was in the days of Noah and in Lot. He pulled them out of the way, and then come destruction. But so I don't know. Just for all my brothers and sisters in Christ, that blessed hope draws nigh, and we just gotta hang in there. I can't be the only one that feels like this heavy, like, spiritual attack, where you just feel like something's always trying to make you feel down and feel less than you should, and trying to keep you suppressed or something, and having to fight it all the time. But Jesus is so real, so real, and so wonderful, and our blessed hope is soon. And I just pray as many people could be saved, find the Lord as possible. Alright, I think that's enough for now. I have a lot more parts in between that I didn't go into, a lot of the finer details, but now I'm you know, only on just a little bit of the methadone. That goes at methadone clinic, only on just enough to keep me from being in withdrawals, and I haven't been in the hospital for a lot of years because I've learned how to manage my leg, and I believe the Lord has kept me, you know, well enough. You know, we have to deal with infirmities in life, and it's going to be that much more glorious when we get our new bodies. And yeah, God bless. I'll probably remember something as soon as I get out the video. Always stuff like that always seems to happen, but love everyone. Yeah, bye.